Okay, I'm Danny Trineri. This is my wife.
I'm Katie. Okay, we have been in business. This is our 15th year in business. And it's also our 15th year of marriage, so it's kind of cool. We started business, basically I told him to quit his job when we were pregnant with our first child. I was like, why are you working in that job if you're not happy? And he was like, yeah, maybe I will quit and I'll do what I want to do. So he stopped what he was doing, which was?
I worked at an HVAC company making ductwork, just sheet metal ductwork. But I think it was like 5 or 6 years. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those careers that I did not see myself being there for 30 years.
8 days after our first child was born, we got our business license and lost health insurance, and we've been doing the same thing since. And now we have 7 kids, and we have a bigger business. Yeah, we've been blessed a lot.
When I was a kid, I always expected that I would do something one day. I was like, I'm going to have a art shop. Didn't even really know what to call any of this stuff.
Yeah.
No, zero anything about business. Don't know where to start. Don't know how to start.
We still don't know anything about business.
Yeah. It was kind of a shock because when you're used to having a paycheck every week, and then you're like, not sure where the money's coming from. That was the sticker shock, I think, for the business part of it. Because we were like, okay, well, we quit our job. We can't exactly go back because, I mean, we probably burned bridges in the process. So we had to learn really quick and figure it out.
But you couldn't find welding work necessarily enough to pay our bills. So you were doing drywall and carpentry and everything under the sun. And then he actually started like working on building a house with this other person and in Kentucky, and all of that kind of like led us to where we are. So when we lived in Kentucky, he started doing trailer repair, which got him in the door with making railings with another guy. And
long
anyway,
story.
Yeah, it's a long story, but
it's an adventure. Every day's been an adventure.
Yeah. But yeah, and we started just like selling on Etsy actually in 2009, and we basically made a living off of toilet paper holders and hooks. And actually that paid all our bills.
Nails, we made nails.
Nails, yeah, very small stuff, but it added up, like thousands of dollars a month. But then he started being a slave to the orders, you know what I mean? So we were like praying, and
we became a production shop.
And he doesn't mass produce things, but he was required to make things exactly like they were in the picture. And so he really wanted to make one thing unique. He didn't want to make like the same thing over and over, so it was my job to get him the work that he wants. So and it's his job to do the work that I give him. So we have that dynamic. But anyway, so we started praying in about 2012 for bigger jobs, railings, local jobs, and God provided. And in 2016 they started flooding in, and we were doing gates and railings and security bars, and they're decorative. They're not just what everybody does. From the beginning, we didn't want to be a railing company. We don't want to be a company that just, a welder. No, when people say, oh, so you're a welder, I'm like, no. And then they say, oh, he doesn't weld? I'm like, he does weld, but he's not a welder.
We want to be a little more refined.
Yeah, we're high-end iron decor. And so in 2020, we were really blessed because even though the pandemic happened, we were able to stop selling on Etsy altogether and focus all on local work because people were stuck at home and they wanted to redo their homes. They wanted to redesign their whole house. So that was our client base, and especially around DC.
For me, it's kind of weird. Like I can't really attach myself to jobs that I do. So there's so many projects that either will be driving down a road and we're like, we know this road, why? And then I'm like, oh, that was like the most painstaking job I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember half of these things.
Yeah.
It's just weird. So
our work is sprinkled all over DC, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia. I mean, we have work actually in Germany, and Japan.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And California and New York.
Part of me wants to say the last job that I just finished was my favorite job, because there's something about each job that I really love, of course something I really hate, but I'm trying to think about that one job that I'd be known for, and I don't know if I have that yet.
Well, I feel like they're in different categories. We have the biggest job, the hardest job.
Yeah.
And they're all a favorite for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like the biggest job was
they're all different too.
a staircase. Like he's actually just finished up his third complete staircase. Not a railing, but like actual staircase.
I think the coolest thing that I've got to make was the that panel, that security panel.
Yeah, ivy, hand forged ivy.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the, and we don't get many like this, but when the customer actually says, look, I just like what you do, just make it. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like, when they turn you loose and you get to make something, it's very rare that we get to, because normally we sell products by pictures of past work.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I want that. And so he makes that.
And so people are really trusting a lot when I sling a sketch out and I'm like, well, it could look like this. And they get excited. When they get excited, it makes me excited.
Okay, so this one guy who swallows corkscrews asked us to make like
a corkscrew,
26-inch long corkscrew.
It looked
food grade stainless steel.
It looked like the dog
he was
screws for your yard.
Swallow it, yeah. So we thought about that long and hard, and we decided not to do it because we didn't want to lose our home.
Well,
and our house.
It was so sad because
family,
he gave us like, they had to be exact specifications, because if not, like, it killed a guy.
Yeah, he said if it's a millimeter off, I could die, so I needed to be exact. And I know Danny could have done it because he does that, but we did not want that responsibility.
But when you hear about it, you're like, yeah, that sounds neat, I can do it. And then you think about it. It's normally after you think about it or you sleep on it, you're like, I don't know how I feel about that one. We did a 5-foot diameter lion's head for an outdoor fireplace. Beautiful piece.
Yeah, all scrolly forged work.
And it was a style that I don't really normally do, so it was kind of cool. So it made it different. So when I was a kid, I used to draw pen and ink stuff all the time. And I was like, one day I'm going to have a business. And I'm going to call it VinTin, which stands for Vintage 10. So the first car was a Tin Lizzie. Of course, vintage, that's a given. And so I was like, I'm gonna build hot rods for a living. That's what I'm gonna do. Like, that's my life. And so, as a kid, hot rod magazines everywhere, pictures. I try to go to whatever car shows I could go to, talk to whatever car people I could find, and never got into it.
Except when we lived in Kentucky,
I did work for a high-end builder.
Car builder.
For a month.
The car builder.
Yeah, it was a street rod shop. And guy had 50 project cars going at once. And I was like, man, I'm living a dream. This is really cool. Until you start seeing the people that you're working with, or seeing the guy that runs the company.
They were crooked.
It really wasn't good at all. But it gave me just that other bit of experience that, hey, I got to work.
Yeah.
I had my dream job
came true for a month. No, but then that's not really what you wanted to do. Like, as he got going, he found out what he wants to do is just make different things all the time. So it's
I get
really
bored quick.
Yeah, like, we have no idea what the future holds. We don't know what jobs we're gonna have, what he'll end up doing, but
I still build old cars.
The door is wide open. Yeah.
So I kind of can't get away from it.
He custom fabricates so many things for all of our. We have 5 old cars that. And I told him, I said, honestly,
I don't know how many
I would be happy, just keep bringing them because it gives us more privacy if you line the front yard with cars. Yeah.
Till the county comes out.
I'm okay with it.
They're going to watch the video and come knocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, but for a long time, he didn't even have a real anvil for like the first 4 years.
4 years. It was, 4 years.
Of doing blacksmithing. What did you use?
I had a piece of train track that somebody had given me. I was under the impression that you need just a chunk of mass, to beat on. And so I was like, well, anvils or train track's pretty heavy. Turns out it worked. I mean, it served its purpose for 4 years.
Yes.
And I had a friend come over and he was like, hey, we should find you an anvil. And so we found one and bought my first anvil, which was expensive at the time for me.
Yeah, right.
And I used it. I'm like, I'm an idiot for doing the train track thing for so many years. Like, what was I ever thinking?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those like, hey, that tool should have been in my toolbox since the very beginning.
Yeah. He actually taught himself. And I mean, he used to use just a torch in a welding shop to bend the metal. But then we had a client when we lived in Kentucky just for 2 years, we had a client say, oh, you're married to a blacksmith. She was like, oh, well, can he make security bars for me? And I'm like, yes. Had he ever done anything like that? No. But I'm always saying yes because I know that he can. And so he did, and he taught himself how to blacksmith. He learned all those different types of coal that you shouldn't use, and it was a huge smoky mess. And he taught himself, and everything he's done to this point has been just, he remembers everything he hears and watches other experts do. So we have a machinist neighbor who has taught him how to do, well, you already knew how to do a little bit of milling, but all these things work together, and he picks up experiences and knowledge from other things. But we have 7 kids, and we told them we're not going to pay for college, not because we don't love them, but because, which we do, but because that's not going to teach them anything. I went to college. They didn't, and I didn't use my degree. I used what I learned, you know what I mean? But I didn't use my degree. So, and I didn't finish. I didn't get a degree. So my point is, he didn't even go to trade school, but he taught himself. So we want our kids to be self-propelled learners, and maybe one of them will pick up some of the skills that you have. But
hopefully.
But we want to inspire other people to just use their God-given talents, and you don't necessarily need formal training to do that.
It does help though. Like in the beginning, I'm still really bad at math, and I thought that if I could become an electrical engineer, it's like that's a challenge. Nobody in my family ever went to college. It was like, I'm going to go to college. That was the plan, and I'm going to do something that's so hard because I'm going to have to work for it. Of course, I ventured down the road and got very, very not even into it. Community college is where it stopped.
Yeah. And
it just realized that it wasn't it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to be certified in everything I can be. I'm going to be
oh my gosh, yeah.
master this and a master that. I thought it'd be really cool to just carry certificates instead of a degree. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll get started on that. So I tried to get an electrical engineering job, something that they would like apprentice. And I mean, there's jobs like that.
Yeah.
And so I went into this one company that I heard that they hire people all the time, and I said something about an electrical job, and they were like, no, you just go down here to this company, they'll hire you.
This was when you just came out of high school about that.
Yeah, and so, I went through all that, and then I realized even still, it's not that easy to get certified in everything under the sun.
No.
But the whole
and
welding end of it,
yeah.
Oh, very expensive. But the whole welding end of it, I think we're touching on 28 years of welding. Because, I got started in my dad's garage when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so even that, with all the years under my belt, and I've had really good people train me. I've got, one of my old bosses, a really good friend of mine. He showed me all the ropes. Even still, there's so much to learn.
I would say what inspires you is when people say you can't do something.
Absolutely.
That fuels you completely.
Yeah.
And so when he was growing up, he was told, oh, you can't be an artist. You'll never be an artist. Artists don't make any money.
They don't get paid. You need to get a job.
Boom. Okay, totally did it. Yeah. And doing it by God's provision. It's working out. And this is our job. We raise 7 kids, and we feed them too. We do feed them. And
you can't have 7 kids.
You can, yeah.
A lot of times people ask me what kind of blacksmith we are, and they're like, so you do a lot of welding, and I'm like, well, we're in between. We do traditional, and would you call it new age? I don't even know. So we're in between. We're some jobs we get are traditional joinery. I have a little piece over there where there's no welding, it's all riveted together. And then we'll do other things where we incorporate the two. So the railings are mostly forged but welded. If that makes sense. Everything in here, machine or equipment-wise, everything we have is super, super old. And my thought theory behind that is if I'm making old things, it would be cooler if I were using old tools to do it. And so, the forge that I'm using, this thing is early 1900s, which is pretty cool. Bought it at an antique store. The guy didn't understand when I told him that I was going to use it on a regular basis. He thought I was going to actually buy it to resell it. When I told him what I actually did, he finally let it go, and so we brought it home and fixed it. Use that guy, I love it. This is probably one of the coolest tools in here. This is our 50-pound little giant power hammer. And so for all the guys out there that watch like Forged in Fire, they use like older or newer versions of the same thing. But this guy, it's basically, it's an elbow saver. And so instead of me having to beat this all the time, this guy does it for me. Love that thing. This was made in 1948, and we actually picked it up in the town where it was sold. And so it was sold to a company, and it stayed there until I actually found it, brought it home, and now she's staying.
We built this shop. We broke ground for this shop in 2018, but before that, we had been working out of for 4 years. He worked out of the Musselman apple plant in Inwood. There's like an old
it was the
factory
machine shop building
full of old stuff. I mean, it was like it was very bad ventilation.
It was dirty.
Just really,
it was
really
low ceilings, no ventilation.
There was like
no
I don't know,
running water.
5,000 square feet, but it was not convenient. No electric, not really a lot.
Well, no, it had that was the only thing it had
no
going
running
for it.
water.
It had
And
no
so
water.
anyway, so for 4 years he worked out of that, but before that he was working out of like under an easy up in our driveway with a one car. No, sorry, time out.
Yeah, no, we're way.
So before the Musselman apple plant, he had worked we had gotten a detached garage that we rented, and so he worked out of that. I'm going to go backwards because it's more fun that way. But before that, he had worked under an easy up in our driveway, and
Welding table outside.
The welding table was outside.
But my tools were out of the rain.
The tools were in the shelter, and then before that,
Pole
you
barn.
had been working out of a pole barn.
But it was a dog kennel.
It was a dog kennel. I mean, we have really humble
It's a
beginnings.
very skinny section to work in, but it was
Before
out of the weather. It was
before
good.
that, he was working out of a driveway with no shelter, and then through
Enclosed trailer.
through the winters. Yes,
We had
out
a
of
small little
5-foot enclosed trailer.
5-foot trailer.
And then before that, it was just out of the bed of a pickup truck for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And so like, we finally have the shop that we had been praying for and planning all these years. And so like he even put like special stuff in the floor, like this long metal beam here was channel. Okay, I don't do that work. This long metal channel. What do you know about that?
Okay, so all the channel, there's channel everywhere in the floor. And the point of that was, for one, I could weld equipment to it. So I welded my vices to it. But if I ever get tired or want to change the floor space around, I cut it off, I can move it to that section. When we do really long pieces of railing or sculptures, or, I mean, we've even used it for our staircases and whatnot, we can weld it directly to the floor.
Yeah, it's super.
And that way, you know, we know it's stable. We know that that's absolutely level, so we can build everything off of that.
Yeah, because the concrete's not level,
Yeah, the concrete's like concrete.
but the metal is. And so Danny's out here working by himself, and so it just makes it super safe. And I was gonna say the power hammer is actually anchored by, there's more under.
Oh yeah, we
there's-
got like a 3-foot deep chunk of concrete underneath of that,
Yeah.
because without it, we'd have cracks everywhere on
Right,
this
so all
entire
this
floor.
was planned out, yeah.
We have a heated floor that doesn't work yet, but it's heated. It's ready to go.
Haven't used it.
I mean, we're spoiled. We HVAC the place.
Yeah, we have AC in here. We traded a railing for AC.
Yeah, we do that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it's one of those things where every place we'd ever worked, I made notes in my head, and I was like, when we build our own place, we want this, we want this, we want this,
Yeah.
because it's just going to pay off in the end. And so the building is not as big as it could be.
Right.
But I feel like if it was
because
any
it keeps
bigger,
adding cars.
it would.
Yeah.
If it was any bigger, it would spiral out of control. You know.
You would have more cars.
There would-
Literally, that's what's taking up all the space. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you're right. But wintertime's amazing because with the heated floor, well, the floor is insulated under the concrete. And so just having our wood stove going and our ceiling fans on, we're 70 degrees. I don't even really have the floor heated at all. It doesn't have to be. It's the best working conditions I've ever been in. We have ventilation. We put fans up in the eaves of our roof just to pull the heat out and the smoke. But since we've done all that, we don't really have smoke. We've never had a nice hood that actually draws the smoke out. And so I think just by building this new building, I probably put another 5-10 years of my life or something. So I think I got 10 extra years because of that. We're good. It's always a win. So a lot of our jobs have to be sketched out so that we can either make scale drawings or at least see where we're going with it. So the one piece that I thought was really cool started out to be this guy. This is full size, so it was 8 feet tall. Man, it weighed 150 pounds at least. And so this was just a rough, just to get everything laid out, because normally I'll draw it out and then I'll make individual pieces and lay it down, make sure that it all, flows and goes well. And we ended up adding so much more to this. These, they don't look like it, but they ended up being ivy leaves, and there were just vines everywhere. And so this was a really fun piece, because this is one of those things where the lady was like, just make a thing. And so I gave her a sketch that looked worse than this, and she loved it.
Yeah.
And so made the sketch a little better. But normally when I do a sketch and I'm making a piece, you find out really quick what flows and what doesn't flow. And so you add things, and we add lots of stuff. Lots of stuff.
We
add lots of stuff. So yeah, so that's how they always start out. They start out with cardboard. So every time you see a box or cardboard somewhere, it's a railing job. So the problem when we do, when we have people come over and they're like, hey, we want to see your work. The biggest problem we have is we make it and it goes away. We don't hang out. These are jobs that are ready to be installed, and so they have to be delivered. So today was a good day because we have some work sitting around. This is another client that's Shepherdstown. She's an avid cat lover, and so she knew that she wanted a cat and she wanted to incorporate it into a railing, and so this was our take on it. But normally when people come out, there's nothing sitting around unless it's something we're in the middle of. And so that's always, it's sad because so many people were like, hey, I want you to make a job for me. We want to come out and see what you have. Well, the problem is we can only show you pictures because we don't have it. Unless it's rare. This is a rare occasion. This was a gift for Katie for Christmas one year.
This is just a really small sample of what he makes. So like a lot of time clients want something that's like 4 or 5 feet in diameter, but this is just, so one thing that makes Danny very unique that we didn't talk about is that we don't use computers to design anything. A lot of times you'll see these like metal signs floating around, like they're usually circular. Yeah, like that, like the cat.
It's not a CAD drawing or on a plasma table.
No,
That's
we took
hand drawn.
and then he sketched it. He made his fit. Like he does it all by hand with torch, plasma cutter, not with a computer. We detest computers. We feel like that takes all the artistry out of this particular craft. But it's really cool. I wanted to show you that we actually started blacksmithing by making this hook. Like this hook, we sold, I don't know, probably 1,000 or more of these.
Yes.
And this was the beginning of our career at VinTin. We call them the teeny tiny hooks. And literally at $4 a pop, this is how we paid our bills for years. And then it turned out to be something bigger, as he honed in his skill. And, now he makes big things. I'm trying to advertise that he makes sculptures because
we need that one person.
It would be nice if he could start making functionless art. You know what I mean? Now it's functional, but I want him to have a client that's like, there's no amount of money too big for this. I would pay whatever for you build me a sun for my yard, like anything, like literally,
child?
No, like a sun.
So that would be
S-U-N. Like I want him to build like, like you see like the big horses, but that's been done too much. I want him to build something very unique.
Elephant.
We're looking for a client. We are hunting our clients. We are client hunters. Yeah.
Because I shock myself all the time. I don't look at our website much, or Facebook, and I'll be like scrolling through pictures, and I'll see something. I'm like, man, that looks really cool, and then I see our watermark on it, and I realize that was our job. I don't even remember it. So it's just. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I'm just doing too much of it.
If you want to know more about us, go to vintinwelding.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We're linked there. We do custom jobs, so email us. Our contact information is there. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks for checking us out.